There was debris everywhere.
Get it? Did you hear about the French cheese factory that exploded? There was debris everywhere.
I got one.
Okay.
So, there were these two cannibals, and they just had finished eating a clown. And one of them said to the other one, "Did that taste funny to you?"
Huh?
Funny to you? A clown is supposed to be funny, right? And if you eat one, does it taste funny? Funny! Clown! Clown! Funny!
Clowns scare me to death. Well, except for the legendary Marcel Marceau. Though I'm not sure mimes are thought of as clowns.
Not like Bozo or Chuckles.
Those leering, exaggerated smiles and distended, distorted shoes. And that air horn!
Heart Attack City, man.
My sentiments exactly, Jedediah.
You're just a scaredy cat, clowns.
Well, I wouldn't talk if I were you, Charlie. Processed cheese slices?
They're unnatural. A shelf life of like forever gives me the creeps.
But they're yummy on grilled cheese sandwiches.
Whose side are you on anyway, Clemmy?
Sorry.
Sometimes I have nightmares of being sliced up and shrink wrapped.
If it makes you feel better, I won't never ever eat another grilled cheese sandwich. Yucky, yucky, yuck!
Yeah.
I can't sleep at night thinking about the mess we're making of the planet, the otters, and the marmots. What kind of a future will my brother and I have? We're kids!
What if some gun-toting, compound-living survivalist knocks down the door to steal my dad's generator? Bed Wet City, man.
The Hindu festival of Holi.
How could a festival of light that celebrates the coming harvest get you dusting your drawers, Chucky? It's just a bunch of powdered paint being thrown at happy, dancing people.
Here we go again.
Obviously, you have not heard of the great chalk grinding scandal of '92. It was in all the papers.
The Staples newsletter, you mean?
It's a newspaper.
What happened?
Unscrupulous ne'er-do-wells hijacked the shipment of colored chalk from the company's warehouse and
And they ground up the chalk, sold it as colored pigment to a local holy festival organizing committee, and pretty soon, Chucky's family was blowing in the wind. End of story. Next.
To this day, I can't share a shelf with poster paints.
But that's awful, Chucky, just awful. Poor little school supply. They ground up our dog Sparky, his bones I mean, and after they cremated him. So I know just what you're feeling.
And why exactly can't people get along, huh? Answer me that. I see some folks on the street these days all riled up and shouting and screaming, and I get real scared.
There's this pencil sharpener at work, very opinionated and all about getting to the point. What's your point, Chalky, old buddy? Do you have a point? Terrifying. And I am not his buddy.
I eat by myself at school, 'cause Francis D. told everyone I have a tropical disease. Don't they understand the heartbreak of psoriasis?
It's okay, Clementine. It's just about cleared up. You'll see.
Gets so dark early these days.
But not too cold, and the fire is super comfy. Thanks for inviting us. Maybe the last campfire of the season.
And Mom said I can stay up late and hang out. Nothing scary about that.
But there's something definitely scary about those sounds.
Hello? Is anybody there?
Don't come any closer. I know karate.
Oh my God, it's so dark up there. Hey, sorry, I didn't mean to frighten you. And Charlie, you were supposed to take care of that path and make sure it was clear.
Oops.
It's okay, Mr. Moderator. We all had the vaccination, so you should be safe to take off the mask.
Well, I just want to be careful. You know what things are like in the Republic these days. Hey, Clemmy. Hey there, my friend Jedediah.
Hi.
Good to see both of you. How was your dad, the great dictator, the chief administrator of the great outdoors? I can't even remember the name of that department. They keep changing it. It's the Department of the Great Outdoors. Anyway, how's he doing?
Dad and the rest of his government cronies are lying low, hoping the health crisis and the education crisis and the environmental crisis will all just magically disappear.
Oh my God, strange times.
Staggers around all day in his PJs, mumbling and singing under his breath. The sun will come out tomorrow. Bet your bottom dollar that tomorrow there'll be sun.
Nathan Jackson, you've ruined Annie for me, and so help me God if you start in on the Sound of Music. I'm just going to have to kill you. Now stop your bellowing, and for heaven's sake, change your t-shirt. It's starting to smell.
Mom's ready to throw him out on his tone-deaf ear.
Yeah, I know, but we all survive our parents, though, right? Yeah?
Amen to that.
And if we still had parents, that is.
No, not the great chalk grinding scandal of '92, my poor friend.
Oh, yeah.
Waterworks, the whole 9 yards.
I thought you were having some improvement with your therapist. I thought that was working.
It is working!
We're all here for you, Chucky buddy.
My therapist tells me that holding in your emotions is cellularly corrosive behavior.
Just saying cellularly is corrosive.
See what I have to put up with?
Charlie, we've talked about this enough, all right?
I'm sorry, Chucky.
So, Mr. M, we were just talking about what scares us. What about you?
Well, the climate change is a big one.
Me too.
And I hate to say it, but heights.
I hear ya, bro. Even holding onto a stepladder gives me the dry heaves, man.
Not me. The higher, the better. So I can be in the sky like a bird.
And the death of George, you know, that terrifies me.
Your partner's a real keeper, all right.
Well, you know, we all have fears, right? Rational and irrational and big and small.
Stupid.
And funny.
And real.
And tonight, we're going to chat about fear with some of our friends from Red Deer who have been brave enough to join us for this session of
Hear and be heard.
10 community conversations.
Co-hosted by the Red Deer Public Library.
And the Red Deer Puppetry Collective. Yeah!
Hey! So I'm going to leave my friends, Charlie Cheese, Chucky Chalk, Jedediah, and Clementine over there by the fire, and I'll see all of you in Zoomland. Bye!
Later, Mr.
Bye.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Parting is such sweet sorrow.
Hey, s'mores, anyone?
I thought you'd never ask.
Totally.
I suppose I could choke down a few.
That's the spirit.
Hi, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the puppet show. I would just like to start with our land acknowledgement. The Red Deer Public Library and the Red Deer Puppetry Collective recognizes that the land on which we live, work, and play is the meeting place of Treaty 5, Treaty 6, and Treaty 7 regions, representing the Blackfoot, Tsuut'ina, Kainai, and Stoney Nakoda peoples. And this area is also the traditional territory of the Métis, Nehiyawak, and Saulteaux peoples. We strive in the spirit of the treaties to keep this a place of trust, friendship, and promise. Thanks everybody for joining us tonight on our fear, boo-hoo kind of story tonight. I'm Matt Gould, of course, as you know from the puppet show you just saw. One of the first quotes I'm going to say tonight is from Plato, and he said, "We can easily forgive a child who's afraid of the dark. The real tragedy is a life when adults are afraid of the light." So after our little play with Chucky and Charlie and Jedediah and Clementine, as they ran through the list of their own fears, we thought it might be fun to delve into something like that ourselves for this Halloween season. And recently, with all of my walking around town and looking in people's yards and stuff, I can't believe how many dead bodies I saw, and skulls and skeletons and all that kind of stuff, and monsters and witches. So this evening, we're going to have a chat about our own fears. Where do they come from? Do they control our actions? And even how do we think we can overcome all of our fears, or any of them? So fear is a natural, powerful, and primitive emotion, and it involves a universal biochemical response as well as a high individual emotional response, so biochemical and emotional. And fear alerts us to the presence of danger or the threat of harm, whether that danger is physical or psychological. So tonight, we have three wonderfully engaged young Red Deerians who are going to join us and be brave and talk about their own fear and get into it with us for the next hour. So first, I'm going to introduce Garrett Ingram, who is a transgender male living here in Red Deer. They are an activist for the 2SL LGBTQIA+ rights, a lover of video games. I can't imagine, I can't even find the stupid things. Video games, body modification enthusiast, as well as an artist. So Garrett, here's my question for you to start it off, and I'm going to ask everybody the same question to start it off for them. Can you tell us a little bit about if you've got any specific fears in your life, and what are they? And would you be okay kind of expressing them to us maybe, and talking a little bit how they might have affected your life, stopped you, or whatever? So I'll turn it over to you, Garrett. Go ahead.
Hello, everybody. So fear has always been kind of a big thing for me. I had a lot of growing up, but I think one of my biggest ones that I had, just being a mixed race individual, as well as kind of having the sort of look about myself, was the fear of rejection. I struggled a lot as a kid, trying to fit in with everyone, because I didn't have friends. Nobody wanted to really hang out with me when I was in elementary school. And I had a hard time going into my teen years with that, because I was trying to be someone that I wasn't. And I was afraid if I, looked funny, that people would not like me or wouldn't want to hang out with me. And that led to a lot of kind of finding myself in groups of people that they weren't my friends. They were just people, right? They were just kind of there, and I was convenient when they wanted something or when it best suited them, but not actually an engaging group of friends that pushed me to be a better person. And leading that into my, adult life, I struggled with that until my, I'd say around 20 years old is when I started actually realizing the root of that, and telling myself, it doesn't matter what I look like, because the right people will come around at the right time. And that's where it comes into me being a body modification enthusiast, is because I started expressing myself through artwork on my body. And that includes, I have really big, fun stretched ears that I can stick my fingers through. And I think that's super cool. And I have a bunch of friends now that also think it's really cool. And we just have, in good engaging conversations, I've been able to, get into positions to talk with, younger people, and show them that it's okay to be the weird one, because there's no right way to be a human being. And it took me a very long time to figure that out. growing up. So dealing with those fears, I had a lot of self-doubt. There was a lot of self-hatred going on. And growing up where I did, like, because of that self-hatred compacted a lot of internalized racism around who I was as a person. And it just ended up like feeding into everything I was doing. So I ended up like hurting a lot of people. I expressed it outwardly. And, I know a lot of kids today, I see it happening, and I know what it is. And so that's why I come and do things like this, because I want them to see that, it's okay. Like you can have those feelings, but maybe talking it out or trying to find the root of that so that you can kind of combat it in whatever way is normal to you. So my way was putting artwork on my body, getting a lot of piercings, coloring my hair, like having different hair, having no hair, like doing things that expressed myself in a way to kind of cope with, but also take back control of that fear and instead face it outward so that it wasn't dictating everything that I did on a daily basis.
So it's kind of like, it sounds like, Garrett, you've kind of, as you say, physically expressed it. So you're moving through the world and through the space with this sort of, hello, I'm here and I'm making that noise. And as I say, that internal garbage, you've, in a sense, spread it onto your body in a positive kind of a way. And then people just have to move over and get over themselves, right?
Yep.
And I love that. That's like this great, courageous stuff that sort of says, okay, guess what? I'm in the world. I've got a place in the world. And even though I might be peeing my pants as I'm getting ready to go out the door, guess what? I'm still going out the door, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's terrific. That's great. Nice, good start. Okay, let's go on to you, Ash Mercia, who happens to be the puppeteer behind Chalk and Jedediah in tonight's puppet show. So yay. And she happens also to be a charming and witty brunette who considers herself to be usually winning at life, an actor, improviser, voice actor, freelance writer, and game reviewer, and an avid bee enthusiast. And as you can see over her shoulder, there are a couple of giant bees. So Ash, I'm going to ask you that same question. If you've got any specific fears in your life and what they are, and just let us know if and how they've affected your life.
Yeah, I think I've always had like a bunch of fears in my life, and it's taken me a long time. Like, it's been a long journey, and I'm still on that journey of trying to like figure out who I am and how I want to be, and when you have a childhood where you get a little bit messed up by your parents, and you kind of have to get over that first before you can figure out like who you are and all that stuff. But I was thinking about it, and I feel like one of my biggest fears is, and the way I word it, I don't know, maybe this has like a specific wording, it's just like that there isn't enough space for me in this world. So like, I want to be an actor, but like, there's like the phrase that like the world needs another actor, right? Like, everybody moves to LA to go and be an actor. So what am I going to do? And that's any different if I were to even try doing that. Like, is it worth trying? Is there even space? Like, so there's that, like, and then there, like, and I think that not only with being an actor, but like kind of with everything that I want to do, which is a bajillion things. And so it's like, I want to write and do video game reviews for a living. That would be great. But like, there's like a million video game reviewers out there, and maybe there are less women, but at the same time, there's a call for more like non-male voices to come out in different things. But at this, like, there's still a shit ton of like female streamers, and some of them are doing things that I think are weird, but like they do their stuff, and that's great. But then it's like, what can I feel like sometimes I'm afraid that I have nothing to bring to the world, like nothing that's new, nothing that's unique, nothing special. Like I should just go be a hermit, be a farmer somewhere, and just take myself out of the universe, like stop trying to show the universe who I am, just like pull it back. So then there's that. That's like one of my fears. I don't know if I can explain it properly. It just kind of like hovers in the background. And I think sometimes not only is it a fear, but sometimes I feel like it comforts me in this way where I'm like, well, if you can't be anything special, then why go somewhere? You're comfortable. You're here. It's cool. And so then it's like, oh yeah, that is a comforting thought. I'll stay here and we're just going to go to bed now, like, so it's a fear that also acts as an anti-fear, because I know that like taking those steps and doing those things that are really scary and get me out of my comfort zone require getting over that fear. So it's like baby steps. I don't know. I think that's one of my biggest fears. Yeah.
No, thanks for that, for sure. Do you think, because the four of us here are in the arts and represent arts and creativity, and I'm wondering, because I've had that same question, like I'm a lot older than all of you, and I've been doing this for 40 some years as an artist, right? And I still say, really, do I need to make this thing? Do I have to push something out and make some noise in the world? Is there value in what I'm doing? Does anybody give a crap, whether or not I'm out there doing this thing? And so, I know we look at all these artists, right, in their videos and movie stars and writers and all that sort of stuff. Is there that core of self something that pushes them and propels them? But we also know, quite frankly, that for a lot of artists, luck is a really big thing. Where you are, the people you're talking to, who you run into, because there are lots of people who are talented and passionate and excited, right? So I think I sure absolutely will. Actually, I relate to both of your fears, because, as a gay man, I've got that sort of internal crap that I'm still wrestling with. Even when I was working on my campaign, right? I'm going up to people's doors and saying, by the way, I'm a gay man and here I am, et cetera, et cetera. So there was always that little kind of membrane to push through. So great. So I'm loving this as usual. I like getting into these conversations. Let's go to our last but not least guest for tonight, and it's Dan Vasquez.
Hi.
Who was the voice of Clementine tonight and Chalk. And he's the full-time there old voice of Chalk. So Dan happens to be a longtime Red Deer actor and improviser. And he also works for the city making grass. So Dan, I found that was kind of cool, the idea of making grass. I thought, there you are in your test tube and putting little things in and suddenly grass is made or whatever. But anyway, and he owns a little Ford Ranger and he loves doing nothing on the weekend. So Dan, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about specific fears in your life and talking about how they've affected you.
Yeah, I wrote that bio kind of under-delivered because it kind of sounds like I'm not really afraid of things. And well, for a lot of ways, fear is exactly put me where I am right now. Overall, I'm 38 years old. And my fear is being looked upon my peers that I graduated high school with. And they're like, well, where's your house? Where's your kids? How come you're not doing as great as me? Oh, well, I thought you'd be cool by now. And that's why I've never gone to a high school reunion. I know it's not that, but they've always been like this echo of my classmates from decades and decades ago, kind of doing one of these, like, oh yeah, what's he up to? Oh, okay. And it shouldn't matter, but at the same time, like Ash, I got into acting and theater, not so much later in life, but like my late 20s. But in order to do that, I was really comfortable with my situation and my circle of friends and kind of what they were and we were all about and everything. And once this opportunity of performing came up and this audition came up and I got to do some shows, it slowly, I had to kind of like hang out less and less with that group, and obviously had to kind of connect more with this new tribe that I was kind of being a part of. And so the fact that I in order to change, I had to change. And whenever I do go meet up with that past circle of friends and everything, there's so much that I can't relate to them now, because it's kind of like that You know, where's your house? Where's your kids? Kind of things. Like I mess around 24/7. Like I decided my own reasons to just do that, and I don't know, I have fun, but at the same time, I feel like I'm also borrowing time from old man Dan. But in a lot of ways, I don't like that guy either way. He's stealing from me, like from present Dan. And so there's that dilemma. But yeah, my main thing, not meeting expectations of others. Some nebulous cloud of judgment saying you're gonna run out of money before time.
Wow. Yeah. It's crazy, you know, because when I was thinking about this theme, I wanted to get some younger people like you folks in to talk about your fears. And oddly enough, each of you have tapped into a fear that I have, because I lived in Toronto for 10 years after high school, and then I moved back to Alberta as a struggling artist, and we had our 10th year high school reunion, and I could barely walk in the door. I was so terrified, just as Dan was saying, that everyone was going to look at you and go, oh yeah, you're this loser artist who's done like nothing, and where's all your success? And I'm now a lawyer, and I'm now this, and I'm now that. And you know, isn't it, it's so absolutely ridiculous that we carry this pain with ourselves and our fear and our anxiety. Duh!
Yeah,
It's nuts.
I figure in some way it can be a motivator. Like
Mhm.
if I was left to my own devices, I would like live on a hut and and eat fish all day and like not care. But yeah, it feels like there's this greater reality out there where, but yeah, if I don't know, if I don't trust myself, or if I don't take that risk, I'll never know. But yeah, it can be overbearing. Yeah.
Well, that's that pressure, and it's that external expectation, and it's the fact that we're all absorbing media and images and movies of all these successful, beautiful, whatever people, right? Whatever we're defining as beautiful. And it's in our face all the time. So how do all of us feel anything but less than adequate, right? So we feel like we're subpar and we aren't quite there. And maybe part of the thing that excites me about the movements of body acceptance and different expressions of gender and the fluidity and sexuality and all that stuff, it's kind of saying, guess what? We're pushing those boundaries. And even though people in my generation are saying, I'm struggling with some of those levels of understanding and acceptance, it's the way of the world. And that is, like, for me, really deeply exciting. Anyway, so it makes me feel kind of positive, even though the four of us are talking about rather personal responses to life on the planet. So that's a really good start, you folks. So Garrett, I'm going to start with you if you don't mind. So I've got a quote from Nelson Mandela. So after I read the quote, you just respond as you want and sort of say, yeah, this makes sense, or I get it, or whatever, okay? Because you're all smart, fast people. So this is great. So here's Nelson Mandela. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave person is not one who does not feel afraid, but the person who conquers that fear.
Yeah, definitely. Even relating back to my own like fears of like not being accepted, I also have like agoraphobia. And so I hate going outside. It makes me terrified. I don't know what's out there. I don't know who's going to be out there, what's going to be out there. But I have to every day, you know, I work a 9 to 5, or I guess 8:30 to 4:30 job. I'm a full-time student. I have to go outside. And so a lot of that is just telling myself that it's going to be okay. And that, you know, I'm going to go outside. And even though, even though it's going to scare me for the first like 20 minutes of once I get out that door, the rest of the day is going to be awesome. Because I know that I've surrounded myself with people that support me and lift me up, rather than people that, you know, make me feel uncomfortable to make it to a point where I can't go outside. And I think that's an important thing, is just kind of like that quote said, like finding that courage, still living with it on the inside, but being able to kind of overcome it in whatever way that looks like.
So how do you, talking about this agoraphobia and stuff, what are the steps that you take just before you literally physically step out the door of the house, if you don't mind sharing those?
So I am a millennial. I'm 27 years old. So I usually will in the morning for my work. We smudge every morning. We say a prayer every morning, and I will go downstairs and I'll put on my shoes, and then I'll just kind of sit there for a minute and like hype myself up into like what I'm gonna do today. And then it usually ends up turning into this like, you look really cool. You just got your throat tattooed the other day and you look awesome. Like everyone's gonna think you're so cool today. And then I'm just like, yeah, I'm cool. I'm gonna go outside and show everyone how cool I am. And that's usually what it turns into. And usually, sure enough, you carry yourself in that confident way, people will look at you and go, oh, that person's really confident. Like they know what's going on, even though I have no idea what's happening. I just know I have a bus to catch in 5 minutes and I have to get there in 3.
That's crazy. The thing that flashes in, I mean, crazy good. And the thing that flashes in my mind is there was a video of Judy Garland waiting to go on stage once, just not long before she died. And she's backstage and she's going like this, and she's like jumping up and down right where she was. And you knew she was psyching herself up to push through that membrane of that terror and that fear to go right onto the stage. So listening to you say you're doing that, I mean, my God, look at this ritualized thing you have to do now. And how like fantastic is that you're pushing through it and you're getting out and you're going, well, here I am, I'm this beautiful thing. Ta-da! Even if you have to psych yourself up for it, right? Wow, cool. Okay, Ash, over to you now. Oh, sorry, Garrett, what were we gonna say? Okay, Ash. When I have accepted fear as a part of life, specifically the fear of change, I've gone ahead despite the pounding in my heart that says turn back, and that's Erica John.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty powerful quote in general, just because I always feel like there's this big disconnect. There's a disconnect between your emotions, and your logic. So my logical brain can say, like, this thing it's just this, and you'll be totally okay, and you could totally do this. And my heart, then your emotional side is just like, no, everything's crazy. It's just screaming at you. So like, if I think back in my past, like I've done things that terrify people. Like I went to Japan. I just moved there and lived there for 2 years without knowing anybody, without having any, like, I had no friends here. I had nobody. I was just getting out of like a very abusive relationship, and I just like fled the country to unknown. And so having just that, but now it's weird because I feel like as I get older, maybe it's like, does it become more difficult to listen to the logical side and you just start listening to the emotional side more? Because like, I'm like, oh, I've done that before. It should be super easy. I should just like, I could just pick up my bags and go wherever I want, whenever I want. I could live in a van, right? And then I'm like, it's like comfortable here, and that's a really scary idea. And so, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot to unpack there, but I think that being able to like separate yourself from your emotional self and just be like, here's what my emotions are screaming and here's what my brain is saying, and then eventually I just like ignore both of them and I'm like, go away, I'm gonna play video game now.
But so when you're saying the battle, let's say, as you're saying, between the logic and the heart, and so tell me a little bit more, unpack that a bit when you're talking about, say, the decision process around going to Japan. You were saying you were leaving an abusive relationship, and then so was it the logic that was saying something or the heart saying go? I guess I was a little confused about kind of which leads and which follows for you.
I think when I get scared, so there's the 3 things when you get scared: fight, flight, or freeze.
Right.
And mine is definitely freeze. And I hate it because I feel like I can never argue with people, because as soon as somebody like gets my face with an argument, my whole brain just goes and I have nothing to argue about, and I just go, yeah. And then I just see, I see exactly what you're saying. I guess I have nothing else to say. So yeah, sometimes I wish I had better flight or fight. I think fight would be a really rad one. Like, could stand up for myself and like yell in people's faces back, you know, that would be nice to do instead of just like this whole, like, if I feel like my whole my whole system shuts down. So when I was like in that abusive relationship, I think it just got to the point where I felt like I didn't feel anything anymore. So that, I don't know, I could look back at that old self and I'm like, I don't know how I did that. I don't know how I got out of that, honestly. It was just one day, it was like, I think I'm just going to go. And it was 2 a.m. and I packed up my stuff in the trunk of my car. Yeah. And it was winter and I drove.
You drove to Japan?
No.
Miracle.
No, I drove back to my parents' house.
Oh.
I was calling my mom at 2 a.m. like, I'm coming home. But like, I think there's some sort of like secret me doing stuff on the down low because I had filled out the application to go to Japan without telling this guy and got the message that I was like gonna be considered and that I had to make plans to go in February or whatever to the consulate. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's, you know, how time just like fuzzes everything over and then all that you're left with is the emotional feelings and no more of the like logic that you had at the time. I don't know if that's anybody else's experience with their memories, but yeah, if I go back into my memory banks, I remember being really upset because he wouldn't let me take my PS3. He got like really, really upset about it. And I was really upset about it because like a video game saved my life literally through that time of my life. So
am I assuming PS3 is something to do with videos?
yeah, it's PlayStation 3.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That makes everyone else feel sick. All the people watching goes, oh boy, what does this guy know? Nothing.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like, yeah, it's crazy what, I don't know. There's a lot to unpack there, but I hope that answered your question.
No, that's good. That's really good. Daniel, when I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I'm afraid. So this is by Audre Lorde, the famous poet. So do you think that when you're engaged in a project that sweeps you up and carries you along, that your fear changes perspective in a way? And do you have any examples of that you might share?
Yeah, sometimes I get hyper focused on an activity and just don't do dishes for weeks. Yeah, because not knowing is such a crappy place to be in, of not knowing what to do, because you're always kind of trying to, I guess I'll fit in. How do I fit in? I'll do what they're doing. That sucks, but I guess if they're doing it, I'll deal with it. What was the question again?
Well, I'll give you the quote again.
Yeah.
And then I won't ask a question. You just respond to the quote.
Oh, yeah.
So when I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, then it becomes less important whether I'm afraid. Audre Lorde.
Yeah. I think a big change happened in my life when I started writing things down. When I started I got a notebook, a spiral one from Walmart, and I wrote down what I wanted to do. First, I thought about what I wanted to do when I retired. If I were to retire, what was I going to do? And I knew I didn't want to tour the Walmart parking lots of North America in an RV. I kind of did, but I knew I'd get boring really quick. But I realized I didn't want to retire. I didn't want to stop working and just do nothing. But I didn't want to work either way. But I figured if I was going to retire, that's when I would try acting. That's when I try theater, see if I'm okay at it, toss my hat in the ring, see what happens. And then my mentality just went, all right, well, make that now then. What if you retired now? And I wrote that in the book, like what I have to do, and I looked up the steps of auditioning and who to audition for. I auditioned for National Theatre School, in Canada, and I had no idea what I was doing, auditioning for like the best theater school in Canada, and yeah, I pooped the bed big time. I stupid. But I did some one acts before and like some dinner theater, but I didn't care because I wrote it down, and it got me to ask more questions. All right, well, who do I talk to? Oh, how do I get there? Oh, what do I need to know? Oh, what kind of monologue? Oh, what's a good monologue to do? These questions I wouldn't have thought of if I didn't have a place to go. Otherwise, it would just be 9 to 5, paycheck to paycheck. Wait until the next Avengers movie comes out, and then oh, good, I check that off. Finish my Avengers tour or something.
Well, was that a little bit then? Was that a little bit like as you were creating something by writing it down? A, it becomes a little more concrete, and B, then in a sense, logical steps come. And so instead of trying to move the mountain, you're moving one little stone at a time, and before long, you have moved the mountain. So in that way, that focus takes you out of the fear of looking at this giant thing, this monster that you've got to move, or this mountain you have to move. Then you're saying, well, guess what? I'm dealing with this stone, and that stone says, phone the National Theatre School. And this stone says, wash your shirt. That stone says these other things, right? Learn a monologue. Yeah. Yeah, cool.
I was gonna say other things, but I forgot.
Okay, sorry, I probably interrupted.
No, walking powerful. Either way, making a thing. I'm gonna tie this to improv. I was always afraid, obviously, when I started improv, because I was worried about how cool I was looking and try not to look like an idiot. But the more I did workshops and learned and ensembleized with everyone, it was more about listening and taking care of each other, and just kind of realizing if I were to go on stage, instead of being judged, I'm actually in the position of power, and I could just do whatever the hell I want, and it doesn't matter if they like it or not, because I'm not trying to impress them. Because when you do try, then it's like, oh, this person's trying to impress people. Yeah, power. That's where I get my power.
Great. Cool. Okay, so this one is a short quote, and I want each of you to just give kind of a short response to it, a couple of sentences or so, just to kind of respond to it. So this one comes from Salvador Dali, and we'll start with Ash and then go to Dan and then end up with Garrett, okay? So have no fear of perfection. You'll never reach it, says Salvador Dali. So I'm not even going to qualify with any questions. So Ash, respond to that however you want to around the concept of perfection and you'll never reach it.
Yep, it's true. I think that really makes me think of my relationship with my body, just because it's never been great until kind of recently. I've always been like, I'm always been hard on myself for that. But I think it's just now that I'm like, you know what, this meat puppet that I'm piloting around is pretty great. So I'm just gonna wear it and love it and try not to be too hard on it. And I'll try to feed it good things and keep it around.
So you've taken that kind of idea of perfection from the outside world, looking at what your body is supposed to be like.
Yeah.
And then finding your peace with that and saying, okay, I'm not going to reach it, so I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
Great. Dan.
Mute. There we go. I'm unmuted. I feel imperfection is perfect because again, with improv, I can have crappy scene. I don't care. It just happened. No one else did it. Everyone else, like, I feel if everyone's trying to feel perfect or going for perfection, I'm allowed to schlum it up a bit and not worry about it so much. Flaws. is what really makes characters for me. And I find to try to give the appearance of perfection can be very, I guess, doesn't actually do that at all. If you try to be perfect, then it shows you're not perfect, but you have to accept you're not perfect. And that in itself is kind of perfect. That's what I think.
Like the handcrafted versus the manufactured,
Mm-hmm.
in a
Mhm.
sense, right? We're talking about performance, but if we're looking at physical objects,
Mm-hmm.
the different energy that comes from this thing that's manufactured by the millions
Yeah.
versus this thing that's hand built, which allows for a quirk or whatever. Garrett.
I think that perfection does not necessarily and should not exist in the sense of the people that you look at, like how you look at somebody. But perfection is something that you make of yourself personally. Like I have tattoo goals. And I think once I reach them, I will look perfect to myself, even though to the rest of the world, I look like a mess of something. But it doesn't matter to me because to me, I'm that perfect individual. You know, like I do things for myself and that's what makes me perfect. It doesn't matter what the rest of the world looks like. I'm not trying to look like them. I'm trying to be like myself. And that means sometimes making mistakes, and nobody will ever not make a mistake. Most people that are successful have a time in their life that, you know, they weren't perfect, and they weren't, you know, like this, they weren't already that amazing public speaker. They weren't already this amazing artist. They had to get there from point A to B. They had to make those steps themselves to build on what they consider to be their perfect self. So that's my take on perfection. That
Oh, nice. Good. I like the idea of process and everything. Yeah. You folks are terrific, by the way. I'm absolutely loving this. Anyway, so here we go. So here are, I said a little earlier, we've got some really rare fears. And at first I read them and I sort of laughed, but then I began to probe a little more deeply, and you can understand how they could be really frightening for people. And I remember I was talking to someone about joining us tonight, and she was talking about a fear that she had. No, I said, let's talk about big fears or little fears or funny fears or whatever. And she goes, well, you know what? To the person, no fear is funny. And that stopped me in my tracks, because we look at people and we point at them when they're saying, I've got a fear of turning left or whatever it is, you know. So I'm going to just read out a few of them, and maybe we can have a short, funny little, well, not funny, but you know what I mean, because I've set us up. But anyway, here's the first one. Ablutophobia is the fear of bathing. So this comes from a trauma that you might have as an infant or as a small child around water. And so what it happens is it can lead to real social anxiety and unpleasant body odors, because of course you're terrified of that water thing, but apparently most people grow out of it as they age. So that's ablutophobia. Now, this one was it's going to be hard to pronounce, but it was a hard one for me to kind of get my head around. And this is Arithmephobia, which is the fear of peanut butter sticking to the roof of your mouth. There's a fear for this, right? So at first I sort of go, oh, ha, 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 you know, and you're having this great laugh. But then you realize that it stems from the fear of choking or the inability to open your mouth. And so apparently some of the people who suffer from this, they're able to have little tiny bits of peanut butter, but they can also eat things like Reese's peanut butter cups and things like that, because it won't stick to their mouth. So it's not a fear of peanut butter itself, but it's that process of sticking. Do any of you have any kind of, let's say, physically fear kind of scary things? Yeah, Ash.
Yeah, I have a weird one that I've always, and I think I know where it comes from even, but I have a fear of touching the bathroom drain. Yeah, and I think I just, as soon as my foot touches it from in the shower, I just like, my foot just like flies off of it. And I think it comes from when I was really young. I was at a friend's birthday party, like a little kid, and this was like the friend, the one who was like into scary stuff, and for her birthday she wanted to watch It. So, and I'm like really scared of scary movies. So, but that I opened my eyes during that bathroom drain scene when all the blood like comes out of the bathroom drain. And I think ever since then, I just haven't been able to touch the bathroom drain. So it's just like, it feels to me, it doesn't hurt, but it feels like putting your hand on a hot stovetop where you're just like, and you pull it away. So that's just what my feet just don't like touching the bathroom drain.
Holy smokes. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Garrett.
I believe it's odd, and I'm fully aware it is completely irrational. I have a huge fear of people touching the lower half of my legs. I get really uncomfortable. It's caused me to cry. It's caused me to go into fits of panic and rage. Even to this day, I only trust two people with doing that, and that's my boyfriend and my tattoo artist who works on my legs. And that's because I've developed that relationship where I can trust them. It's still really uncomfortable, and it makes my legs feel like they need to kick. I can't describe it, but it makes me feel like I need to kick stuff with my legs and like flail around and try to get as far away from them as I can.
Holy smokes. Dan, do you have anything?
Yeah, I guess I'm starting to develop an irrational fear of being gifted leftovers, like in nice Tupperware. Because like, as much as I plan on eating these leftovers, something happens that I'll, eat out the next day. I already had something cooking. And then slowly but surely, these leftovers that were gifted to me just get bad. And I open up the fridge and I'm like, I should eat that because it was gifted and I shouldn't waste food. And then but so I can't throw it away. I can't eat it because of the guilt. And so it just stays there and gets rotten and rotten, more rotten. And then I have to keep inventory of all these Tupperwares I'm keeping and when to give them back and where the lids are. And so every time I go visit my mom, I try to eat as much as I can. And at the end, she's like, "Oh, you want anything?" And I, as nice as I try to be, I'm like, "Oh, I'm okay." And she's like, "Oh, I'm just like, I'm not gonna eat this." And it's rough, but I'm like, "I'm sorry, Mom. Like, I want to, probably won't. Then you're gonna see it later, and you're gonna be like, how come you didn't eat it?"
Holy smokes.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's
Wow.
just a little thing. It can
Yeah,
just grow
yeah,
big,
yeah.
just.
We had a guy when I worked on the cruise ship, and this guy he was going to be a psychologist, if you can believe this. And he had the fear of using a toilet seat that someone else had used. And literally, when he and his girlfriend moved into every apartment where they lived, they would take the toilet seat out and he'd get a new one. And he was a nervous wreck working on the ship because in the cabin, there were 4 youth counselors and he had to share the toilet with other people. So he was like a nervous wreck. Anyway, so that was his. So here's another one. This one's called, and this one goes to me for sure. This is Arithmephobia, and it sounds like what it is, and it's the fear of mathematics. And it's mostly not the fear of numbers or adding or subtracting, but it's mostly having to perform math in a situation like at the blackboard in front of the class, right? Where you've got this great fear. So let's just have a quick hands up whether or not you have that fear. Yeah, I was terrible at math and I had it. So now this will be fascinating for your gang. This is called Nomophobia, and it's the fear of not having your cell phone, and that includes being in a place where there's no signal or the battery's dead. So do any of you have any kind of? Yeah, okay. Yeah, all right, good. Look at that. Okay, I don't really have it either because I can leave it when we're on vacation and stuff and we're not using it or whatever. I don't really worry about it. Now, this one is a really fascinating one. It's called Ablutophobia, and it's the fear of opening your eyes. So I found this one was really troubling because, we all, of course, use our eyes, and it relates to a trauma when you're a young person, whether you saw something and then creates this fear of opening your eyes. So a lot of the sufferers that deal with this don't leave their house ever. And if they do, they're going into dark and dimly lit places. And I had quite a serious accident in Mexico. I was working on the cruise ships and I was driving back to work on my scooter, and I woke up on the ground in and being lifted into an ambulance. So even to this day, I can't remember how I hit the car that I hit and what led up to it. My understanding is that the brain blacked it out to protect me from the trauma of seeing this thing come up. So in that way, it's kind of like the brain closed my eyes, at least, on that traumatic experience, right? Any of you have any kind of a response to the optophobia one? And not in the same sense, of course, because you're all here and your eyes are open and you're functioning, but.
Kind of not really. I used to live with these people, and we had a cat and lived with them for a long time. And every now and then, I think I see a cat out of the corner of my eye. I'm like, oh, because I was so used to seeing that cat all the time.
Kind of like a shadow that sort of stayed on the retina there a bit.
Yeah, exactly. And not that I'm missing to pet a phantom cat. It's just, of course there's a cat. Oh yeah, there's no cat there, kind of thing.
Right. Here's our last one, and then we're going to go on to the last kind of question for you to think over, and we'll end it. This is called Plutophobia, and it's the fear of wealth. So I read that and I said, oh, wow. But it's not the fear of the actual money, but it's of being wealthy and the crushing responsibility that comes with the wealth. And that some sufferers feel that it can put them in danger. Kidnapping, robbery, all that kind of stuff, fears of violence. And some of the sufferers actually sabotage their own jobs and their own money-making capacity because they have this plutophobia. And I'll tell you just a quick story before we go to the three of you and see what any response you have to that. Again, when I worked on the cruise ships, this time as an art auctioneer, sounds like I spent my whole life on the ships, but anyway, I was working as an art auctioneer and we were in the art gallery, and there was a woman in there and she was saying, I can't stand it. I have to deal with all these millions of dollars and wah, wah, wah. And everyone in the room, all the other people were sort of going, I wouldn't mind having that problem. I wouldn't mind that problem myself, having all that money to deal with. But then when you read about plutophobia and you understand that idea of responsibility and the weight that it carries and managing or whatever. Anyway, I think that woman kind of had that sort of issue. Anyway, it's kind of it's an out there one for sure, eh? Okay, well, let's go on to the last idea to mull over and have sort of closing thoughts, if that's okay. And then I'll gear everybody up for the next conversation. So, what about the idea that fear heightens your awareness of a situation? Because we know we've got the fight or flight, right? That it can give you a tremendous advantage. So fear points out what can go wrong, and then you can be ready for all the obstacles that arise. And maybe it gives you energy and excitement that can be channeled into enthusiasm. So we'll go around to Garrett, Dan, and then Ash and see how that feels about the engagement, energy, enthusiasm. What do you think about it?
I mean, I know that, like, for me personally, like I said, like, I do have that agoraphobia, and every step that I take going outside, something could happen. And my brain goes, well, I know how to incapacitate somebody. I know how to fight. I know how to do all these things. I know what I'm doing. I know where to run. I know my neighborhood. I know who to go to. And it's a constant nagging voice in the back of my head. But at the same time, when I go do public speaking engagements, it kind of flips and goes into this like, well, how many people are going to be there? I can't wait to share with people. Like, I want them to listen to what I have to say so that maybe they can relate back to me. Maybe the conversation can be started. And then it spirals into this, like, I can't wait to help people. And I get excited about that. And again, it's that hypervigilance. So now instead of being afraid of like what's going on outside, I'm now excited for what's going on outside, even if I'm still afraid of being there. It's very odd. It's it's such an odd little kind of like meshing of emotions in that moment.
Cool, 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 cool. Ash.
Yeah, I guess that kind of feeling happens to me when I'm doing a show, because I'll go to rehearsals and I'll go through all that stuff and get prepared, and then I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna be fine. Like, I'm not really feeling anything. And then it's not until like 30 minutes before the actual show that my stomach just like feels like there's a million butterflies in it. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, what? We were perfectly fine. And then I got to go to the bathroom like 3 times before the show starts. And then like, but then I get on the stage and it helps me like get through the show, I guess. So it's, yeah, definitely fear can be helpful as long as you don't let it control you.
Right, and kind of incapacitate.
Or hold you back, yeah.
Yeah. Dan.
Yeah, just like Ash. I've always, whenever I've had a show, I'm kind of nervous the entire day. I try not to show it, but just because I have that expectation of myself that I'm put in a place that I'm allowed to perform for people, therefore it better be good, or it better be what they think is what they could do or anything. But I find it whenever I feel fear, it's usually a sign that it's something that I should be doing. Like when I'd go to the pool lots, I hate going to the pool. I hate walking there. I hate changing there. I hate taking that cold shower. I hate getting in the water. But once I start, swimming, then it's the best place I'd ever want to be. I'm working hard. I'm breathing hard. I feel like I'm flying, and I feel like I'm an Olympian for a little second. But everything up to it, I hate. Same with improv and rehearsals before a show, even walking up to the stage. I'm just like, all these people are here. They're looking at me. But once, I also do that little chat of just like, yeah, they're here for us. They're sitting down. Everything that we do is good. The fact that we're up there, it doesn't have to be hilarious. And when we don't look for stuff, and it comes from an honest place rather than a place of anxiety, when you can be comfortable with like something that did bother you during that day, and it gets brought up in a show, and then you find that a lot of other people in the audience can relate to that same thing. And so what you thought was a really dumb idea that you threw out because you didn't care what you threw out turns out to be a really relatable thing, because everybody thinks it's dumb or something. But it's a good thing when you reach for those dumb things that everybody can share with.
Right,
That's
nice. Yeah. Well, that's really good. I'm kind of curious as we sort of wrap up. We didn't get on to anything like fear of COVID, or fear of the world falling apart and dying. I mean, those are like huge things. And I know for me on a personal level, I carry a lot of anxiety around those things. It's not debilitating, right? Because of course we're all in our lives, we're all in the trenches, doing our own stuff, moving, putting food in our mouths, going to sleep, all that kind of stuff. But there are these overarching things. But I'm really fascinated that we didn't move on those. And there's no right or wrong in the way we were taking this conversation tonight. So I've certainly loved it. So I want to thank each of you. So Garrett, Ash, and Dan, for joining us and opening up and talking about these fears that we can all relate to or not relate to, all that kind of stuff. And I want to thank all of you. Apparently there were 7 people watching the video a few minutes ago. So that's like fantastic. That's fantastic in these days of a fractured audience with everybody zoomed out. 7 people, that rocks it. So I'm Matt Gould for the Red Deer Puppetry Collective. And I'm going to just let you know that our next conversation takes place on November the 16th, same time, same station. And here's our little blurb about it, so you can kind of get that in your calendars, if you will. Armed conflicts with various moments of peace thrown in for good measure have been with us, well, like forever. As a race, we seem to have hard times not to put up our dukes. And we're going to talk about why is that, and can we see another way? And are we on track now to have more peace and fewer wars? So Charlie Cheese and Chucky Chalk and myself and assorted community guests are going to take off the boxing gloves, and we're going to have a very peaceful conversation about this ancient human pastime. So Put Up Your Dukes is the next conversation on the 16th of November. So for the Red Deer Public Library, for the Red Deer Puppetry Collective, on behalf of Garrett, Dan, and Ash, I'd like to wish you all a wonderful evening. And thank you all for joining us for 10 community conversations here and Be Heard. Have a great evening, everybody.